Hello, my name is Mildly Gothic, and welcome to another episode of I Was Left in the Michael's Floral Section Unsupervised. More accurately, I spent a lot of money, again, to make something cool, I think. So, today what I'm doing is I'm making a wreath. This actually took me under 2 hours. I have some tips on how you can do that if you'd like to as well, and kind of the supplies that you will need. Wreaths are something I remember making with my mom when I was super little. We would go on a walk and we'd pick up acorns and pine cones and come home and put them all together and make these really fun wreaths. I have a display of all of the supplies that I used. Number 1 tip, you can return things. Make sure you grab more than you will need. You might lose motivation if it takes you multiple sessions, so definitely make sure you get all of the supplies that you think you're gonna need, and then maybe a few extra. Number 2, have a solid plan in mind. Kind of know the look or the style or theme that you're going for so that you're not grabbing things that you don't need and wasting money, and that you're focused and have a direction when you actually get started. Number 3 is having the right materials and maybe experimenting a little bit before you commit to what's really going on it. Biggest things that I would say is scissors to help you cut things. Of course, wire that matches. I went with silver because I'm going with a very white and silvery kind of wreath, and so I didn't want the floral wire to stand out too much. Cutter, pliers, and then these are for grabbing and actually bending the wire around. These are jewelry pliers. I just reuse them for this purpose. And of course, the biggest thing is make sure you get your wreath base. I would start with a tiny wreath if you've never made one before. That is what this wreath is. I am not claiming you can make one of those massive, large, beautiful, bushy door wreaths in 2 hours. Probably unreasonable, but you can make a nice small one in about that amount of time if you have more than what you need, you have all of your supplies, and you have a path going forwards. Domino is standing next to me. It is a shame you cannot see him, but I will include, we took really cute Christmas pictures of him. So, wreaths are a super fun holiday activity. I've always enjoyed making them, and it's been a while, so I decided to take a crack at it, and I'll show you the result. So first things first, I hijacked my favorite feature of fake flowers, and that's that you can often pull apart the individual sections. The reason that was useful for a wreath purpose is I was then able to thread the wire through the center of that hole and use it as an extra way to ensure that they were going to be secure onto the wreath. After a little bit of planning, I kind of got to it. I tried to use the shape of these different floral pieces with the curve so that they didn't go against it and there wasn't anything sticking out super awkwardly. And you're kind of in a constant process of fluffing and adjusting and going back and forth. Whenever you encounter that wreath cross brace, you absolutely want to take advantage of it and secure stuff to it. I only did it when it happened to coincide with one of the pieces I was attaching, but it is still very useful. I did cut a good bit of this out as far as attaching all of these tiny little white branches to the wreath, but they are the main part of the wreath, and so they took the most time as there was a lot of them. When I finally reached about approximately the halfway point, this is when I decided to start incorporating my other pieces. I started with the silver tendrils, as they were going to go up the longest section of the wreath, and then I started by stacking my silver and red berry looking things. I'm not entirely sure what you want to call them. I stacked 2 of them and then decided to layer some more white to kind of go in between them and hide the spaces, and then proceeded to add another stacked set of the silver and the red. I decided that this would be the pattern I would mimic on the other side. Pretty straightforward. There's a lot of room to kind of plan it as you go, but as long as you have a general vision in mind, you will be so much better off than if you just buy random things and have no idea where you want to put them or what you want the look to be. I decided to incorporate 2 of the silver tendrils just so I could get more body and luster out of the silver. I wanted them to be a little bit more visible, even though they do end up hiding. It's just a different texture, something different. And texture is a key thing, I think, with wreaths that people don't think about, is the different textures will help the different elements stand out more, so even if they are of the same color, you can utilize different textures to help things stand out. And then once again, I was finished with this initial placement of these red and silver things, so I went through and finished covering those up. I continued doing the white all the way around until I got to the next section where I wanted to repeat the pattern. This is where things got a little bit difficult, and it was a little hard to determine exactly halfway, so they're not super even, but I just needed to make sure I got my spacing right enough that it was going to sit kind of where I needed it to. Following the same pattern as the other side and making sure to secure everything, I started with the silvery tendrils and then the silver and the red and attached those down. This side of the wreath became difficult because I was fighting the tendrils coming up the other way and trying to have room for my hands and the wire to secure things without getting lost. Also, in the previous section leading up to this, I'd gotten a little happy with placing all of my white feathery bits, and so I was actually kind of running out by this point, which is why you should always buy extra. Another one of those probably would have been a saving grace here, and I wouldn't have had any stress, so I was trying to figure out how I could lay things the way I wanted it to, still get it covered, and not have it look awkward. And with all of that, the other tip I should have mentioned is absolutely patience. Wreath making is kind of difficult. Sometimes you're just trying to get the geometries of everything to work out, especially because my last couple white fluffy pieces just had the worst bends and shapes in them, so I was trying to bend them back and get them to sit in a place and go in a direction that they didn't necessarily want to go, so a little bit of patience is key to getting everything to work with you. The last berry element I had to incorporate was these frosted berries. I loved them, but I realized that as they were going to be way too big for the wreath. And so I decided to pull them apart and break them into different sections and keep chunks of 3 and then also just individual ones and disperse them across the red and silver sections that I'd already established and maybe carry that red a little bit further up into the wreath. This involved attaching them a little bit more from the backside because that was the side I could more clearly see where the wire was and ensure that it was going to be securely attached. I also decided to take advantage of the little green leaf on the bottom of these things and add just a slight pop of a different color, which I think turned out so cute and was a really nice addition. So once I did the frosted berries on one side, I took it over and copied it on the other side, the berries and the leaves, to bring the whole thing together and make it more cohesive. I realized when I first did the second side of the wreath that I did not include 2 of the silver tendril things like I did on the first side, so I went through and pruned and plumped and added that second set. And the last element I had to incorporate was these long white branches. I cut them into a variety of different lengths and segments and decided to stick them around the wreath using the friction of all of the wonderfully glittery segments to kind of hold everything into place and bend them around to give some different texture and fill in those areas that had been unfortunately underfluffed due to my previous happy-go-lucky nature of attaching all of the white feathery bits to one side of the wreath and not the other. This was a super cute addition. I think it just brought a little bit of extra texture and some dimension to the wreath, and a lot of fluffing and pruning is involved in the final stages of the wreath. You just gotta make sure everything sits how you want it, make it all look pretty. And that never ends throughout the wreath's lifetime. Plucking, fluffing, and pruning. So here we are. Here is the wreath at the end. I am super pleased with it. I did get a little happy-go-lucky in putting my white feathery sections on one side, so the other is a little bit lacking, but that's why I tried to incorporate those white branches at the end to try to kind of hide some of the spaces. There were things that I purchased that I did not end up using, but I actually have some other ideas for them, so I'll be holding on to them. The number one thing is the amount of glitter that this thing made. It made so much glitter. But it's really pretty! So I had originally thought that I was going to do it branching out from one center point. That didn't end up happening. I decided to go with your traditional just spiral kind of a round wreath, and then 2 opposing sections of the red, the silver, and then those nice branching sections of the silver up the side. I think it turned out super cute. I hope you think the same. Something I did not show that I should mention is I went onto the back and I did secure all of the connections with hot glue just as an extra reassurance that they were going to stay where they were put on the wreath, because with the wire as I secured them, they will stay attached, but they may slide around, and I didn't want that, so I hot glued very light dabs on the back to ensure that everything would stay in place. So now that it would all be left is picking a top to this wreath, which I have not decided, probably this, and hanging it up. I also thought originally I might put a bow on it. That didn't end up happening, as you can see, but nonetheless, I spent about 2 hours and made this lovely wreath. So, take my tips, take my thoughts maybe, and I hope you enjoyed. I wish you a very Merry Christmas, as this should be going up on the 23rd, I believe. So Christmas is right around the corner, so happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever celebration you may be having, whether it be with friends, families, or dogs. I hope you enjoy, you have a good time, and bring yourself some holiday cheer. And with all of that, thank you very much for watching. Please like if you thought it was interesting, subscribe if you want to see more artsy kind of content, that's what I like to do around here. Share this video if you have anybody who likes to make wreaths. And if you do stick around, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!